Hi, I'm Jennifer of the Go Find Out podcast, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about fears and then also how to kick those fears to the curb. Now, you've probably heard of the fear of success and the fear of failure, but you might not have heard of the fear of deflation. Now, the fear of deflation is the fear that you might lose interest in the things that you want to go after and the goals that you have in mind, right? You have these big goals, these big great dreams, but then you're concerned that, down the road, you might go after them and then, in the middle of them or even after you've actually achieved them, you might change your mind and realize that you don't want those goals or dreams anymore. And so you just don't start. Right? You don't take those first steps towards actually going after your goals because of that fear of losing interest. And so today I wanted to talk about how to actually deal with that fear, right? Because it's one thing to say, oh, wow, I totally have that fear and that's my issue and that's why I'm not moving forward, right? A lot of people, when they have that fear of losing interest, it's sort of that fear of what if I choose the wrong thing, right? You have several different options or several different paths that you're interested in. And instead of just choosing one and going for it, you are concerned that you might choose the wrong one, right? The wrong one, and go after it only to find out later that it wasn't the one that you wanted, right? It wasn't the path that you thought you could be on for a long time. You have that fear of losing interest in it, right? So the best way to really deal with this fear of deflation so that you can kind of get a move on, right? And start working towards a goal of some sort. So the first thing to do is kind of boring, but it's to do some research. Do some research on your goal. And the reason that you want to do this is as you do that research, if you find that you're getting more excited about your goal and you're feeling super enthusiastic about, taking the next step and actually taking action toward that goal, then chances are you're not going to lose interest right away in your goal, right? But if you're doing research on your goal and you kind of find, it's not as interesting as you thought, maybe you have found something else while doing your research that's more interesting, then great. You just kind of save yourself some time from going after something that might not have been a long-term goal, right? But doing that research will really help you to get an idea of whether or not this is sort of a long-term goal so that you'll know whether to, put whatever money into your goal that you might have or put that time into the goal that you might have. And now the second thing that you can do to defeat the fear of deflation is to actually write down what it is that you would do if you didn't go after this goal. Right? What would you do instead? Do you have other options, other goals that you could go after instead that you know that you wouldn't lose interest in? Are there other paths that you can go down? Write down what it is that you would do. And if those other goals seem more interesting than the current goal that you have, then, go after those because it sounds like you'll stick with those goals maybe longer, right? But if you find that you don't really have anything to write down, right? You don't have any other goals right now or any other plans that you could go after instead. Basically, if you don't go after this goal and you kind of continue to do what you're doing now, then nothing will change. Right? So then it kind of becomes, well, okay, you could go after this goal and potentially lose interest, or you could keep doing the same thing that you're doing now, which is not going after your goal, which means that you definitely won't achieve it, right? So that might help you to kind of get started in taking that first step towards going after your goal, right? Recognizing that not starting and that you don't have any other better plans to go after, goals to go after, will help you kind of determine, okay, let's do this. And even if I lose interest down the road, at least I started and at least you'll be in a different place than you are right now. And my last suggestion, the third thing to do in order to defeat the fear of deflation is to consider what is the worst case scenario that would happen if you pursue your goal and then lose interest. What is the worst that would happen? Right now, it might seem like, there are these horrible scenarios, but really, play it out, right? What would happen? One example that I like to give is, getting my master's degree. So I spent lots of money, right? Went into debt to get my master's degree, and I spent 2 years completing it, and I did complete it, and it was for community counseling. And I did counseling for, I don't know, maybe 9 months after I got my master's degree. And then I realized that, oh, this is not for me, right? This is not the field that I should be in, right? So pretty much worst case scenario, I spent money, I spent 2 years of my time, I put a lot of effort into it, right? I moved for the program, I moved for my job afterwards, and then I realized, oh my God, this is not the thing for me, right? So worst case scenario. But here's the thing. Even though the worst case scenario occurred from me going after that goal, it ended up being a stepping stone to where I am now. If I hadn't gone after my master's in community counseling, I would never have sidestepped over into employment coaching and counseling, right? I would never even thought of that as a job. So going after my master's degree is really what helped me to get where I am today. And if I hadn't gone after it, I would probably, still be where I was, working a position that barely paid anything and being unhappy in what I was doing, right? So I'm really glad that I went after that goal, even though I did lose interest in it, but it ended up being that stepping stone to the next thing. So really go through and try these 3 things if you're dealing with that fear of deflation, with that fear of potentially losing interest in your goal. And it might help you to really be able to take that next actionable step towards moving towards your goal. If you'd like to hear a little bit more in-depth information about the fear of deflation, definitely check out episode number 35 of the Go Find Out podcast. That's all for now. Until next time, go find out.